My name is Rachel Rofe. I created this show because I wanted to help you see that if you have a choice, you can choose a better life. If you're listening to this podcast, you're in a pretty fortunate position. You have free will, ability to connect to the internet, and access to all kinds of new education. This podcast is meant to help you make the most of your good fortune. We talk with all kinds of people here from all walks of life because I want you to see that no matter what your situation, there's always a way to create a life that you're proud of. Hello everyone! Today we're here with Talia Fuhrmann. Talia is an amazing woman that I just came across. She actually reached out to me after she saw my podcast on iTunes, and we've been getting to know each other, and I'm just so impressed with who she is and just everything that she's doing in the world. So she is a health food foodie. If you recognize her last name, she's actually the daughter of Dr. Joel Furman, who's behind Eat to Live and Super Immunity. And she has her BA from Cornell, and she's a writer. She has a book that will probably be out by the time this podcast airs. And I recently read it. I actually read it over the weekend just to prepare for this interview. And I was just going to read like a chapter or two, but I found myself just going through the entire thing. And I was actually reading it on my phone and taking lots of phone screenshots from it because I think that she has a really great way of just taking health and making it something that's fun and something that's really accessible. She was talking about how she's a health food foodie, meaning she eats really healthy, but the food that she makes is actually really good. It's very accessible for everybody. Talia, thanks so much for being here. I think this is going to be really fun.
Thanks so much for having me on, Rachel. It's pure joy.
As you know, the intention behind A Better Life is to show people that if they have a choice, they can choose a better life. So we always kick this off just asking, can you take a second to just share with us some of the things that you're most proud of in your life right now?
Yes, Rachel, absolutely. I would say that every day, the ability to work hard on a passion and be an entrepreneur and taking that risk, absolutely. The book is something that I'm so excited to share with the world. And just the ability and the freedom to have a job that you are so passionate about, and you can go to sleep at night knowing that you have the ability to help make the lives of other people better. It's a priceless gift, really. And when I'm having a bad day, I always remember, I am, just like everybody else, a human being born on this planet who has the potential to make the world a better place and help other people. And so that is something that, I'll have with me for, in the present and for the rest of my life.
That's such a great point. And, we were talking a little bit before this podcast, obviously, and one of the things that I really loved that you were talking about is because, first of all, your book is all about it's not just about health, but it's about loving your body overall. So the full thing. And you talk about all different types of things, like you give some really awesome recipes. Like I was saying, I was taking screenshots of them, and also just about the emotions behind having health, and that having vibrant health isn't just about the food that you put in your body. And one of the things from our conversation before we started the podcast officially was really impressive to me because, a lot of people might see your name and think, your dad's pretty famous, and are you doing this because it's your dad's influence, or, are you where you are maybe because of your dad, whatever. I'm sure that people have had these thoughts, but you actually have a real amazing story that really illustrates why you're able to be so passionate and why you're such an expert in your field. Can you just tell people a little bit about your backstory and the things that you go through? And because I'm so impressed with what you go through on a daily basis, and then how you're still able to be so vibrant and love life so much.
Well, obviously, people know my dad's work and his emphasis on nutrition, and so I ate a plant-based, nutritious diet my entire life, but I was also an athlete for most of my life. I have vivid memories of playing tennis with my dad early in the morning in elementary school before school would start, and I actually wanted to be a pro tennis player when I was a teenager. And so what people don't realize about me is that I've had injuries due to the tennis playing. When I was about 17, suffered from nerve damage. I hurt a nerve on the court and I fell and it was painful and I was like, what's going on? I'd always been feeling amazing on the plant-based diet. It was really like a shock to my system to experience this really sharp pain that felt like a dagger, and I was like, what is going on? So it does turn out that it's like a physical nerve. I crushed it. That was like a huge wake-up call for me because I was like, how am I going to feel good about, getting up in the morning when I am dealing with this sharp pain? And I've seen my dad help people with diabetes and, you name it, obesity. His work, I was just able to connect with any health problem with other people that much more. I think when you are going through your own struggles and then you see other people having struggles, I definitely think that it makes you a more empathetic person. And that cliche phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, it's absolutely true. If you can use any setback in your life or anything that's a struggle and turn around and make it a positive and kind of like rock at it, then that is such a self-esteem booster. It's a form of self-love. It's a form of living your best life and having no regrets. And that can be with an emotional problem. We all have things that we're going through. And the reality is that I'm working on healing and, I'm now in my mid-20s and I've actually lived in chronic pain because of my tennis injury for years and years. And it's not something I talked about in the book, but it's something that was a motivational force for me to write the book. I wanted to share with people my philosophy on what truly living our best lives means. And as I mentioned before, that often means appreciating the world around us all the ways that we can. And we have such power to find a passion that can also make the world a better place. And so I'm a big believer in overcoming any difficulties that we're going through to really see the beauty in each and every day.
I think that's great. And I think it's so inspirational, like I said, because to know that you're sitting here and there's just pain so often going on. And there are so many people who might be aspiring tennis players like you were, who wanted to be just total professional tennis player and then have this pain where basically you're not able to do that anymore. I know that you've went to a bunch of different people to try to get it fixed, and so many people would probably just be mad at their bodies. Like I know when I got PCOS, I was pretty mad at my body. Like I definitely had a period where I felt like, just a victim and like, what the heck, like I lost 100 pounds and now I'm gaining this weight and I can't do anything about it and just like feeling really mad. So for you to be able to have this thing which basically shattered the dreams that you had and still it's like a decade later you're still working with it, but to still have that relentlessness in loving your life is really helpful. It's great. I know that you don't share that with a lot of people, so I'm really grateful that you took the time to do so.
Thank you, Rachel. It's not something that's easy to share. I realize that even though most people don't have nerve pain, we all usually don't get by scot-free in life, and we all go through some sort of issue. And I think when you're able to share with other people and be vulnerable about what you're going through, it makes you connect in a really fulfilling way with others. I just think that if I can do it, anybody can do it. Anybody can love life. I mentioned this in Love Your Body, the book, that it can be as simple as going on a walk and looking at flowers and seeing the bright colors and beauty of, the green grass and how the warmth on your skin. Even just being human on this earth is such a gift. We don't have to win the lottery or find supposedly the man of our dreams just saying these things to be supremely happy. It's all inside of us, and that is my core message.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's such a great point that you don't have to be, that there's definitely so much to appreciate just in the current moment. And some of the things that you were talking about before, you were mentioning about just connecting with people and stuff. One of the things that I read in your book that I thought was really interesting was how you talked about how people who have close friendships, they end up living 22% longer than those who don't. I thought that was fascinating.
It's incredible, and it turns out that it's our close supportive relationships rather than family members. Even though family members are also they're family and they mean the world to us and we love them with all our hearts. It usually it's these close friendships that we choose that have this lifespan enhancing effect. They're so good for us, and it's also a journey to find friends that are the right fit for us. Not all people we meet are meant to be our lifelong friends. I think when we find people that really sparkle with energy and optimism and passion for life and also want you to live your best life and give you encouragement, that it's so beautiful. It's a priceless gift that no amount of money can buy, and so I'm really glad the science supports me on that one.
A lot of people who are past school age, or maybe they're entrepreneurs and they don't work with people all the time, it's harder for them, or they feel like it's harder for them to make friends. So, would you have any suggestions on things that people can do? And I know you covered some in the book, but could you share anything now for people?
Yeah, and that's funny that you mentioned that as well because I grew up in New Jersey and I went to college in upstate New York, and a year ago I moved to Southern California, so even I had to branch out and meet some local friends in my new city. So it's not always easy to meet these people, and we meet them sometimes randomly when we least expect it. One of my closest friends I met when I was on the salad line at Cornell lunch, and she was talking about being a vegetarian, and I just jumped in on the conversation, and she knows who she is if she listens to this. She's like my best friend. So you really don't know when and where you can meet a potential friend. Sometimes it just clicks. But at the same time, we are given social media and networking, and I met you just because I started listening to your podcast. It's easier more than ever to meet people who are like-minded, positive spirits, and so sometimes it takes a little bit of time. You don't need to have a bajillion friends. It's great to have acquaintances, but how many close friends do you really need? If you can count 4 or 5, really close friends that you can just give a phone call up and they know your true self, then that's all you really need, and that's something that develops over time. And I'd say that cultivate friendships with people have your back, that are truly inspirational people who have passions. I talk about this in the second chapter of Love Your Body in depth in the book. I would say that don't stress about anything in life and let things sometimes go with the flow. You will know over time who these people are.
And so I know that we talked a little bit about in the past about how we're both naturally more introverted. And I know that there's a lot of people like in my Facebook group and stuff that are saying that they're pretty shy and introverted. So I'm curious, when you talked to the friend behind you on the salad line and you just got into the conversation, was that natural for you? Or do you have any like pointers for people who might be a little bit more introverted?
Yes, I would say the aspect of my personality that's the most introverted is that I don't really like big parties, large crowds. They deplete my energy. But I am when it comes to meeting people one-on-one, let's say when I was at the salad bar, if I'm around just a few people, then I'm really friendly. So people will not get that I'm kind of more introverted than extroverted, because if I'm around just a few people, I am the friendliest person you will meet, and I smile, I want to get to know who they are. I feel very comfortable if I'm not around a huge crowd. I would say finding what works for you. If you are an introvert and you like to spend a lot of time maybe at home or whatever, and that maybe blogging is your thing, meet other bloggers. There's always solutions to your personality type and ways to meet people. That is the strength of our technology-driven world, is that we can be either extroverted or introverted, and we have access to meeting more people than ever. And sometimes it can be just sending an email to somebody whose work that you admire so much and you want to learn more about what they do. Email them and then talk to them on the phone, and then you're automatically connected, and then you can kind of springboard from there. I've met so many people from the work that I do. I feel like there's such a community. It's such a blessing. So we have this gift of meeting more people than ever. So I'd say sometimes you just need to give yourself, if you are nervous, a little push And once you get over any fear or hesitation, you really have nothing to lose.
You know, that reminds me, someone asked this morning, they were making a goal inside the Facebook group, and their goal had to do with basically she does direct sales, and she said she's very shy, and she wanted to know how she could start overcoming her shyness to be able to meet more people, which would in turn make more sales. And so we were talking, and one of the things that I was telling her, which kind of just parlays really nicely with what you're talking about, is just a lot of times it only really takes 10 seconds of courage because you just need to tell yourself, I'm just going to say hello. And that's it. So you have the initial 10 seconds, actually even less, but let's just say 10 seconds. And then the worst case scenario is just it gets super awkward, which is fine. And then the next time you do it, you just need 10 seconds again, and you know that it's going to be easier than the first time because that's just the way that life works. The more you do things over and over, the easier it gets. And so if you can just take 10 seconds of courage the first time and then do it again the next time, knowing it'll be better, your worst case scenario is better than the last one. It's just so much easier. So I like how you said just get over that initial nervousness and then boom, we can move on.
Yep. And sometimes it takes embracing the nervousness too. Say like, hey, I feel really nervous right now, but I'm going to actually start typing this email anyway. Once you do it and you click send, then you get a positive response. It's like, oh wow, like I did this, and that's right. It becomes easier the more you do it, and you won't be nervous anymore after a while. So it's getting over that initial hump.
Totally. You know, I'm glad that we're talking about this because I know most people might think about you and they might think, you know, nutrition and all this stuff, but as you so awesomely explain in your book, it's about full body health. And so the friendship is definitely a really important piece, especially like 22% extender on your lifespan is just wild.
Wild. I would say making everything in your life as enjoyable as possible is part of living your best life. So I will not eat a nutritious meal if I don't think it tastes great. You know, young people often do not think about getting cancer when they're like in their 60s. It's just not on our minds. We're so busy. But if we can make eating nutritious food delicious and also easy and affordable, then I think that's pretty much in a nutshell what we all want. We want deliciousness and affordability too. So the recipes that I worked on in the book, you know, you can make them on a Sunday, you can store them in your fridge for the week or the freezer, and I love them. I look forward to eating them, and I hope that readers do as well. And it's also, when you make the transition to eating more fruits and vegetables and plant foods, people who are used to eating a conventional American diet might not think it tastes as yummy as, let's say, I would because I've been raised on it. So our taste buds are actually very adaptable. It's like most things in our lives, you know, are a product of our environments, and we like the foods that we're used to eating. If we're used to having a yummy banana strawberry smoothie with like chia seeds in it every morning, we're going to want that more. And I remember you telling me in our conversation for the interview that you just love, you crave your morning smoothie and you have it all the time. And it's also being open-minded to giving plants a chance and then being really wowed that they can taste so good.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned a couple things that I'd love to touch on. You were talking about how we all want affordable and easy, and I was tracking my expenses last month, and side note, like, so recommend tracking your expenses. I was tracking what was coming in and what was going out, and I was just blown away because I would have sworn to you that I would have only spent a couple $1,000s, but turns out my expenses were 13,722 and change. And like, luckily I made more than I spent, so like that's fine. But all that to say, I tracked my groceries and I spent over $1,000 on groceries. And so it's just like, wow. And I eat very healthy, organic, like choose the best ingredients and everything. But I'm thinking like for people that don't have this variable income to spend so much, like this is a lot of money. So can you touch on some things that are really healthy, that are affordable, that and just like that people can make pretty easily? And even if you have some quick recipes that maybe even people who like the typical conventional diet would be able to enjoy?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to start that question with the fact that medical care is so expensive in America right now, too. So, like, there's nothing that's more valuable than your health. And, like, that's literally true because if you get sick, you can be spending thousands and thousands of dollars at the hospital in pain. So that's something to think about. There are absolutely options for us when we go food shopping, and this was really great research for me when I was writing the book. I was digging like how much does frozen organic strawberries cost versus fresh organic strawberries versus conventional strawberries, and often frozen fruits and vegetables are so much cheaper. And often a question I get is, what is the nutritional value of frozen versus fresh? And because those frozen fruits and veggies are frozen right after they're picked, they are so fresh and they retain all of the nutrients. Often fresh fruits and vegetables, when they're sitting on the shelf and between transportation and everything, they actually, go bad at a faster rate, and their actual micronutrients are the like vitamins and minerals, all of those things, they go down over time. So buying frozen can often be A, more affordable, and B, more nutritious. It's really cool, like when I'll defrost a box of like frozen broccoli and I'll see the rich vibrancy of the color of the broccoli. It's like you can tell that it's like it is jam-packed with nutrients. And so let's say most people will probably not want to eat or enjoy the taste of just defrosted frozen broccoli. So then how do we cook that in a way that's going to taste wonderful? So I'll maybe throw vegetables like that in a stew or chili. I love making my own plant-based creams and sauces in my blender or Vitamix or food processor. I'll throw lots of spices and all of these things into a huge pot, make them taste delicious, and then I'll store it and I'll have like food for the whole week. These recipes don't have to be expensive. Beans in cans are very affordable. A lot of grains are very affordable. Going to farmers markets is more affordable than shopping in Whole Foods. There's ways, man. Really great ways. Once you make the decision to get healthier, you find those ways. And Trader Joe's is one of my favorite places to shop. They have great deals all the time.
That's awesome to know about frozen foods because I know when I was living in New York, I was traveling all the time and I would always buy all this stuff and then I'd have like stuff that would go bad really quickly. And so I was just knocking on my neighbor's doors trying to get rid of stuff, feeling so guilty about wasting food. So it's awesome to hear with the frozen food that it can just, because it can stay in your freezer for longer. So that's really nice. You don't have to worry about using things up. And so you mentioned you'll just throw things in the stew, you'll make it taste delicious. So can you expound a little bit on what you do to make it taste delicious?
It's really a form of art. It's creativity. Let's say I have my big Vitamix as a high-powered blender. I'll take tahini, I'll take some almond milk, let's say, or hemp milk or something. I'll throw that in with, I hope other people will not find this unappetizing, but stay with me here, tomato sauce. I'll make a really creamy, like Italian-like sauce, and then I'll put in lots of Italian spices. I'll put in sun-dried tomatoes. It depends on the recipe. I think spices are really key. Not salt. I don't use salt. Obviously, that's not good for us, but really being creative and getting to know what you enjoy and also not being afraid of spices. I know that most people are a little bit scared of the prospect of playing around in their kitchen. I have these recipes. That stew that I mentioned is in the book. I have a few that I love on my website, and I'm going to continue to be making lots of recipes for the rest of my life, but I also have some favorite food blogs that I recommend in the book. One of them is oshiglows.com. That website, I remember finding it in college. It was one of the best days I had. Like, I was studying for finals, and I was like, my whole culinary world changed. I love that website. But I wanted to mention that there are recipes out there for free in so many places these days. I provide my favorite food blogs in the book and also have my own recipes in the book. So I want to make it really easy, but sometimes it's just making the recipes and figuring out what you like. And let's say you love mushrooms, add mushrooms to that stir fry. Or let's say you hate, we'll say bok choy, even though bok choy is one of my favorite vegetables. Just don't include that. It's like knowing what you like.
And the stew sounds like, a lot of it is just like you can throw in a lot of different ingredients, which is great. And I find that too, a lot of times just throwing a bunch of stuff in. I like to add garlic to lots of things, and garlic tends to just make everything taste better, parsley or something.
I'm so with you. Garlic and onions all the way.
Oh, yes, I love onions too. And there's a lot of simple recipes out there. I think if you go, one of my favorite Pinterest boards is pinterest.com/Ginny. I think it's Ginny M. Johnson. We'll have it in the show notes to make sure it's right. But she has a whole bunch of different healthy recipes on there that are like 5 minutes or less to cook. So when you have people come over, I imagine that you're friends with people that have different diets than you. What are some things that you make that everybody can agree on that taste really good?
My dessert, hands down. My chocolatey muffins, brownies, cupcakes. I've had people who are total meat eaters taste my desserts and they're just like, wow, there's no sugar in this. There's no dairy. This is crazy. I sweeten my dessert recipes with dates and bananas, most of the time just fruit. I even sometimes hide beans in those recipes, and I don't tell people what I add. I just have them taste it, and they really enjoy it. And that stew that I mentioned, I haven't had one person say they didn't like it. They're actually really surprised.
You know, I noticed that you put beans in a lot of your recipes. Why is that?
Beans are a superfood. They have just a horrible reputation. One of the chapters in the book is the 3 most misunderstood foods, and beans contain a type of fiber called resistant starch. And this fiber helps the healthy bacteria in our bodies thrive. And the healthy bacteria prevents diseases later in life. It's so good for our bodies. But what most people don't realize is that we don't absorb all of the calories on the can when we see on the label however many calories are in the beans. It's this resistant starch isn't absorbed by our bodies, so it's a super weight loss food. So it fills us up because it has so much fiber, but yet really great food to eat if you are looking to watch your weight. So that's just a little bit about them, but there's also great rewards for eating beans too. It's all in the book.
Have you seen those chips, the Beanitos chips? They're chips. I've seen them at a lot of health food stores, and they're just like beans and sea salt or something. Like it's super clean ingredients.
Huh, I have to try them. I'm going to look them up after I get off.
Yeah, they're always in the chip aisle. I mean, they definitely have some flavors that like have dairy in them. Like there's a cheddar one and a nacho cheese one, but they also just have like one that's just white beans, and they have a regular one that's just beans and sea salt. And
So happening.
I'd be so curious. Let me know what you think about them when you see them, and we can add that into the show notes. What your official diagnosis of them are is.
That's happening. It's just a fact. Yeah. So people who are scared of beans, I know some people say, they don't sit well in my body. I don't feel well. And I would say just putting like, let's say a few tablespoons of beans in a recipe, or not eating that many beans at first, and then giving your body the opportunity to get used to eating more of them is a great way to start incorporating them in your diet. Our bodies get used to what we eat, and it's scientifically proven, so it can be gradual.
So I've heard that sprouting the beans makes it easier to digest. Sprouting just, and I know you know, but just for everyone listening, just like putting them in water for a few hours is supposed to help. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a great way to eat them. We don't have to sprout them, but that's another option. Trying things out, seeing what works for you and your body is always the best way to go.
No, I liked you were talking about, which, and I think this is really helpful for everyone listening in the book. You talked about some of the best foods for your brain and for memory. Can you talk about some of them here?
Yes, absolutely. It's fascinating. There's a class of antioxidants in plant foods that gives them their bright colors. It's actually the same chemicals that color flowers. They're called flavonoids. There's thousands of flavonoids, and each vegetable or fruit or even beans contains a different combination of flavonoids. And research shows that people who eat a wider variety of flavonoids actually have a reduced risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. They help us staying mentally sharp as we get older. It's just another reason to eat those fruits and veggies, because there's a direct correlation between the nutrient density of our diets and our risks of mental decline as we get older. It's really interesting. And I hopefully wrote about it. Hopefully people will find it as interesting as I did, because I think the words really jump out on the page, because I was just like floored when I was doing my research on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really surprised too. I was taking, just like I keep saying, just so many screenshots because here I was actually getting a pedicure. And so I was just reading the book on my small cell phone, and I just every couple seconds click, 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 had to go back and read this again because it's just fascinating. And you mentioned like a couple specific foods. Was it blueberries? It's on my screenshots, but that are really good specifically for your brain. And I know like all fruits and veggies have flavonoids, but are there ones that are specifically good for your brain? I feel like you mentioned that.
You remembered that correctly. Blueberries are extraordinary. All berries are really good brain foods. Berries are the most, I guess you can say, flavonoid packed type of fruit. During the summers, one of my favorite times to go food shopping and seeing all of these brain healthy fruits and vegetables in the store. Cherries actually contain really cool combination of flavonoids. One of the chapters in my book is just on berries, and I talk about the nutrient composition of each one and what the unique health properties. Cherries have been shown to tackle physical pain just like taking Tylenol. Cherries are actually, they contain chemicals that can help heal our bodies. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I just read that cherries were actually the number one fruit, and I know that there's research like that really can go any like talk about anything and make anything sound like anything, but cherries were touted as the fruit that would be best for weight loss, number one, because they're pitted. You have to like you have built-in portion control because you go slower to accommodate for those. And then also it's super low on the glycemic index.
Yeah, all fruits and vegetables are fantastic because they contain high water content and very few calories. So you're filling up and eating a large quantity, and they have so much fiber too. So you can eat a lot, and you're not absorbing that many calories. So it's just, they're all fantastic weight loss foods as well as health foods. You can't go wrong with fruits and veggies.
Well, what about something like bananas? Because I've heard that bananas are bad for weight loss. And I know, again, there's back and forth on this, but what's your take on it?
There's so much back and forth. It's incredible. I don't know if you've heard of the banana diet, because there's also diets out there that are primarily based on bananas, and you eat lots of bananas all day, and it's you can eat any type of food, all day and nix out other types of foods. You can eat Twinkies all day and still lose weight because you're just eliminating so many other food groups. But the question about bananas, are they good for us? I'd say kind of like asking if, like, let's say quinoa is good for us, or a grain. They're not the most nutrient dense plant food, but there's nothing bad about them. They can be included in our smoothies and our diets, and the key is to eat a wide variety of plant foods, and so that's just another plant food. They're not a superfood, but there's no reason to avoid them as long as you're not eating fruit or bananas all day. There's no reason to be scared of bananas even when you're trying to lose weight.
That's a good point. And on that note, actually, I want to share an amazing recipe that I've been eating a lot. You've probably had it before. I think actually, I know that some of your recipes have this, but I've been taking ripe bananas and just freezing them. And then whenever I want ice cream, I know that dairy is not really my friend. So I'll take the frozen bananas and then I'll put them in my blender. I have a blend tech, so it's kind of just like the Vitamix. And I'll put in like a scoop of peanut butter and maybe a couple of strawberries and just blend it up and make ice cream. It's delicious.
Oh, I
Nothing
grew
else.
up on that stuff. I love it. I
So good.
banana ice cream. Oh, that's where it's at. You freeze the bananas, chop them up, put them in your freezer. The bananas last forever too. After tennis practices, that's what I would make, my banana ice cream. Then to make it even healthier, I'd sprinkle some ground flax seeds or chia seeds on top. I was like the healthiest little girl.
That's a really good idea. You can't really taste the chia seeds. Chia pudding too. Oh my gosh, you guys, there's so many recipes out there. So we'll have a link in the show notes to some of Talia's recipes and some Pinterest boards and the Oh She Glows. Is that what it was?
Yes, oshiglows.com.
Great. Well, this has been awesome. And I think we just highlighted some really great points. I'm really glad how we started off and talked about the fact that you're in chronic pain so much, yet you can still hear your radiance and your vibrancy just like screaming through your voice on the phone. And to still be in love with life and to realize that health is a total game. It's not just what you eat, although you gave some great tips around that too, but also just your emotional. I think that is something that people can get a lot of good takeaways. And if they're listening, different people might get different things, but still like walk away super, super impacted. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Rachel. It was really a gift. I'm so grateful to meet you and to have this opportunity.
Same here. Thank you so much for listening to A Better Life. You can find all show notes for this episode at rachelrofay.com. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe so you can automatically get access to all new shows. Let's also connect. Just go onto Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram /RachelRofay and we can talk there. The opinions of all guests here are their own, and I'm not necessarily endorsing any of them. I do want to give you perspective though.